Welcome back. We're going to go now from Cruz de Ferro to Santiago de Compostela. This slide you see coming up is Cruz de Ferro. Right before I got here, I was followed up by about two large Korean tour groups. Very noisy, very loud, but big celebration when everybody got up there. And I told you a little bit about that. Everybody leaves a rock and place in their place when they leave to for forgiveness of their sins. It's a Catholic tradition. Here's another hippie commune, I call it. I always made fun of it. I said hippies. I don't mean that badly. They're hippies. They're all running around in dreadlocks and running around in their underwear. So, act like hippies. More cows, lots of cows, dairy cows everywhere, especially here in the mountains. So, we are out of the Meseta. Down below, you'll see to the left is Ponferrada, to the right is Molina Seca. I'm actually heading for Molina Seca. Just a picture of another sign. The bushes are so tall, they had to put these taller ones up to get above the shrubbery. They don't get out and maintain the shrubs too much. And then this was a very steep, nasty, rocky section. On this part of the trail, after I went through, two women went down here and they died. It's very steep, very rocky, very slick, but they died, I think, from the heat, and one had a heart attack, I believe. Here's Molina Seca. Molina Seca appears to be a rich part of town. Yeah, and then this is Villafranca. Villafranca was another sort of high-end town. Almost every block of that town was under renovation, remodelings. There was a sudden influx of money into that place, but very quiet because of all the construction. Though nothing was open. There were hardly anywhere to eat or anywhere to shop. I did find one grocery store though. And then the next day left Molina Seca heading to Ambas Mestas, which is not my plan, but the weather made me choose that. And here in Ambas Mestas is the not where I stayed. My place was closed, but they invited me in to come out of the rain to get warm. And this is a group of people, all from different countries that I had dinner with that night. It was very wonderful experience. And here are some giant marshmallows. It was very wet the next day, and I was waiting for some hot chocolate to go with these marshmallows, but didn't see any. And then these little cow cages, they set up these cow cages so that the bigger cows can't get to the food. And then the little cows, they can just fit in there. Okay, climbing up this in the mud and the wet really sucks. I know it doesn't show you how steep it is. It's at least a 30-something degree grade. It's bad and slippery. Trying to get to El Sobrero. I think it's only a couple more kilometers. I'll make it. This is about halfway to El Sobrero. And then I came up on actually the regional crossing point. This is the sign or the monument, I guess, statue, whatever, that marks entering into the Galician region. Food styles change a little bit too when you enter that range. And then here's Osabrero. So this is a church in Osabrero that I went to. It's kind of like a tourist thing. They have a guy inside that helps you out. And then here's a shot of the town. It's a very small place, but there's a very Celtic influence in Osabrero. In all Spain, actually, there's a lot of Celtic influence. You see it like on this next slide here, where I go into it's actually a home, and they actually did everything. The shop was in there, the animals were stored in there, everything was in this one little. I called it a little shack. And then this is leaving, getting ready to leave Osabrero and head down to I forget the name of the town again, Rabanal, I think, which was a real scary place, but the people were very nice. And then here's my view from there. It's very, we're back up high in the mountains again, so it's been very pretty, very cold, but very pretty. And there's a result of all the downhill and uphill that I did for that part of the trek, and to go find me a knee brace, which are everywhere. So more dairy cows, very pretty, very well kept. They take very good care of their animals there, but they're everywhere. You see them all over the place. And then here's just happens to be a spring that someone had built, but the water is not drinkable. It's more for the animals, I think. Okay, I'm doing a lot of climbing today, a lot of downhill. Hurt my knee again. You know, and all this climbing and going through these farm towns and looking at all this country. Oddly enough, the one thing I keep thinking about is the desert. How I want to be back in the desert. Isn't that weird? Yeah, that was a weird feeling. Um, this cow sign warning about cows looks more like a fat donkey. I had to take a picture of it just for fun. And then this picture here is us coming into Saria. Saria is the 100-kilometer mark. Meaning there's 100 kilometers left on the trek, and I couldn't believe I had already made it to this point, but I did. This shot was actually taken when I was leaving the next day, but it was a pretty cool shot, so I took that. And then this picture here is of Saria in the morning before first light, really, or right about first light. I didn't get any pictures in Saria, really. I was just too tired. And here's just continuing on my way from Saria. The misty mornings were becoming a real regular thing. They're a little harder to walk in when it was dark, and I'd done that a couple of times, but the trails were pretty easy to see, even in a dark forest. You could pretty much make your way through. And up here, we're having a little visit with a doggo that just happened to show up when I took a Coke Zero break. He just walked right up to me out of this house and came over to say hello. So he probably said, "Hey, tell Tracy I said hi." And then these dogs, just a little bit past that, just lay down right in the middle of the road. Don't know why. There's an intersection there, and they were just laying right in the road, letting everybody walk around. And there's the official 100-kilometer remaining marker, let's call it. That's a big point. It changes the rules of the Camino. Now I have to get 2 stamps in my passport for every day, at the beginning and the end of my stage each day. So if you don't get that, then the certificate is challenged when you get to the cathedral. And just I don't even know which town this is. Just a little town that was passing through on the way out of there. And down below is Porto Marin. That's surrounded by a body of water. It's actually a big lake and river point. Looks like a big vacation spot. Um, it's elevated, so everything you have to go to get in there is uphill. So once you pass that bridge, very long bridge, once you get to the end, there's a real steep staircase, but I didn't have to go through that. It'll show up here in the next slide. There it is. So a lot of people stood there, took pictures of it, but everybody said, "I'm too tired. I'm not walking up there." So a lot of people didn't walk up there. Okay, this is interesting. This is my room for tonight. I'm here, it's actually only about noon, but this place has open window with the door. There's a privacy screen there, so I can close it. Otherwise, it's open to whoever wants to look in here. TV, which you can't watch because I don't understand Spanish. Heater, it is very cold today. Very cold. And very wet. And then here's the bathroom. So this is as big as it is. I mean, it's a very tiny space, but it is warm. And that's all I care. It's warm and dry. All right. Oh, here comes a precarious bridge crossing. Could be. It's a little muddy. Oh, I slipped there. A little slick from all the people's mud on their shoes. There you go. Yeah, here these are called jorreos. They're actually for storing grain. They're built in such a way that the rats can't actually get into it. I don't know if they use it much anymore, but it's a historical way they stored food. Just some more scenic shots right outside of Puerto Marine. And this picture is interesting. This next one, I just thought, man, doesn't that guy look like a young Kevin Costner? That was as I was getting into Padruzo.
Okay, this morning is very wet. It's been raining since I left the hotel. I just stopped. Oh, I see the water crossing with some critters in there saying good morning. Still got about 3 hours to go or so to get to Old Padruso. The Sarians, apparently. I call them Sarians. People that started in Saria. They are slow rollers. I realize you have to get an early start. So they will never know. I only have one more day, so they're okay. Anyway, oh, here's another uphill. See you later.
Okay, more remnants of the rain, and you'll see that the trail's getting really crowded now. These are the Sarians. They start at the 100-kilometer mark. The cathedral does permit that you do the last 100 kilometers, but they also have to get 2 stamps per day for their passport. And it was getting extremely crowded at this point. This was not my most enjoyable part of the trip at all. Okay, that was the bagpipe playing. That's done for the pilgrims, welcoming them as they come through the arch into the city or into the cathedral courtyard. And there is the cathedral in all of its glory. Um, it's not as easy to get into as I thought, but they do hold a pilgrim's mass there, which is going to come up here shortly. Once or twice a day, depending on the day of the week, where the pilgrims are blessed and the incense thing is swung from the ceiling. And there's a story that goes along with that. I'll get to here in just a second. is the pilgrim's passport that you carry along with you, that a credential that you have stamped along the way with all the stamps that I got on my entire trip. You present that to the cathedral, and then they issue this certificate to you in Latin certifying that you have made the journey of a pilgrim. And they give you this, it's pretty informal, and then you're done. Well, now I have to tell you the story of Hejun and Elena. Hejun and Elena, I mentioned to you earlier. I don't know in which part. I think it was in part one or part two. Hejun and Elena I had met on the trail, and I had crossed paths with them after my third day several times. And we also, without planning it, ended up in the same hostels or albergues or hotels without even realizing it, or until we got there. And we had dinner together and lunches and talked a lot. And June and I hit it off really well. And so we all became friends, and we spent a lot of time together, sharing meals and whatnot. Anyway, when we had gotten to the point at Framista, June had hurt himself. He had hurt his ankle somehow. He didn't roll it or anything. His foot just wasn't tolerating the walking as it was earlier. So he had sent me a message as I was leaving from East the next day. I was about an hour outside of town. I usually started before them, and said, "Hey, Mike, we're going to take a jump onto Leon." And I was like, "Ooh, that's 100 kilometers away." I says, "You do realize that?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." I says, "Well, safe travels, and I'll talk to you later." And he said the same to me and wished me well. And we both had each other's phone numbers, so we could stay in touch. And about 5 minutes after that messaging conversation on the trail, all of a sudden I was hit with a wave of almost, well, it was sadness. I realized that I was not going to see them again on the rest of the trip, because now by going up to Leon, they were almost 5 days ahead of me. Which is about 100 kilometers. So we still had another 200 kilometers to go at least until Santiago. So I was pretty down the rest of that day. I was not feeling it. And the remainder of the trip, I was alone, for lack of a better term. In other words, I didn't have any other companions that I bumped into or stayed with. I walked alone, and I checked into hotels alone, and I had dinner with strangers, from time to time. And I interacted with people, but I was really missing June and Elena. Well, fast forward a couple weeks, and me hoping I would bump into them in Leon because they were staying there to recoup for a couple days. That did not happen. Fast forward on to when I arrive in Santiago and I get my certificate, I get my Compostela, and the next day I wake up and I want to go back to that square where the cathedral is. And I come out of my hotel, make a left turn, and I go where the direction I think is the cathedral. It's not that far away. It's probably a good mile. And I somehow made a complete circle and ended up right back at my hotel. I don't know how that happened, but I did. I was shocked. I was flabbergasted, actually. So I got on my phone, pulled up the app, and the satellite would still let me use the Camino Ninja app, even with no cell service. So I was using that, and it told me to go a slightly different direction, off to my left instead of my, or off to my right instead of my left. And I get, probably a few blocks down the road, and I make my first right turn, and I hear this voice that says, "Hey, you." And I look up, and it's Elena standing there with her husband. Well, they weren't supposed to be there, I thought. They had told me a couple nights before that they were catching their train that day to go to Madrid to fly home to Chicago. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, what are you guys doing here?" And they're like, "We came to find you." And I'm like, "What?" I said, "No, you're supposed to be on a train." And they said, "We're on our way to the train station right now, but we left the hotel early." And June says, Elena said to me, "Hey, before we go, let's go see if we can find Mike." And they ran into me like a block and a half away from where I started from the hotel. I couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. We were just standing there in shock. We were so happy to see each other. I mean, we were jumping up and down on the sidewalk. It was pretty pathetic. Embarrassing, I guess, but I didn't care. Nobody ca We didn't care at all. So, um, we talked a little bit, and then they had to go catch their train, so I let them go, and we promised we'd stay in touch with each other because they are planning on moving to Arizona. So I'm having them come down here in the summer to spend some time, probably next summer, so that they get an experience of an Arizona summer because they are Chicago people and they're used to a little bit of heat and a lot of humidity, not a lot of heat and no humidity. So, but she really likes it down here. She's been here before and she wants to bring him down here and shop for homes. So that's my story of Hejun and Elena. That was probably one of the high points of my trip. I was so glad that God put us all together again. And I hope to remain friends with them um, for a long, long time. They're wonderful people. And anyway, that's the conclusion of my trip. Any questions? Like I said, put any questions down in the comments. I will get back to you. There, I do look at the clips to see if anybody put in comments or for questions, and to see how many people have viewed the clips. These clips will only be up for about 30 days, and then I will pull them off the channel. So, but if you want to either text me with questions, call me, fine, I can answer them to you on the phone if it's just too long of a question. And if you're thinking of going on a Camino, I'm the guy you want to talk to because I got good advice on what to do and what not to do. So I won't be able to give you all the answers, but I'll be able to give you enough to where you can figure out the rest on your own. All right, thanks, guys.